Imagine a place where time stands still, where the whispers of the past meet the present. Welcome to Florence, the birthplace of the Renaissance, a city where every corner tells a story, and art speaks louder than words. In the midst of this vibrant city stands the Uffizi Gallery, home to some of the most recognizable art in history. It's not just a museum, it's a journey through centuries of human creativity. Commissioned by Cosimo I de' Medici, the first Grand Duke of Tuscany, and designed by Giorgio Vasari, the Uffizi Gallery wasn't initially a gallery, but was intended to house the administrative and judiciary offices of Florence, or Uffizi in Italian. Beyond the many gems it holds inside, the architecture itself is considered to be a masterpiece. A U-shaped structure with a stunning corridor overlooking the Arno River. Today, it is no longer an office, but one of the world's most famous art museums. This 100-room space displays over 2,200 works of art and welcomes 4 million visitors every year. But with so much to see, where do you even start? Leading the charge is none other than The Birth of Venus by Sandro Botticelli. We're all familiar with this image, but what about the story behind it? Created around 1485, this piece shows Venus, the goddess of love, emerging from the sea on a scallop shell. She is pure, perfect, like a pearl. Zephyrus, the god of west wind, and perhaps Aura, the goddess of breeze, fly in an embrace, blowing Venus towards the shore on the island of Cyprus. She's met by a young woman on the right, possibly one of the Graces or the Hora of spring, holding out a cloak covered in flowers. The smaller elements of the painting, like the roses fluttering, symbolize the essence of spring, adding a delightful touch to the narrative. It has long been suggested that a member of the famed Medici family commissioned this piece around the mid-15th century, even though there's no recorded information of the painting before 1550. This speculation is born out of the orange trees in the background, which are considered an emblem of the Medici dynasty due to the similarity between the family name and the name of the orange tree, Mala Medicia. Venus and her pose is modeled after classical statues, specifically one seen at this very institution, the Medici Venus. This composition, a harmonious blend of classical Greco-Roman influence and Gothic art, creates a mesmerizing portrayal of an imaginary scene, a mythological moment captured through the mind of one of Renaissance's greatest artists. Over the past 5 centuries, the painting has gained the ability to represent not only the rebirth of classical art and culture, but also the ideas of love, beauty, and divine grace, an enduring pillar of Western art history. This masterpiece is often associated with Botticelli's other large-scale painting also featuring Venus, as both of them are considered icons of the Italian Renaissance. Created around 1480, this piece is a who's who of classical mythology. In the center, we once again see the goddess of love and beauty. Venus is chastely dressed and set slightly back from the others, overseeing the scene. Above her is a blindfolded Cupid, the god of love, aiming his arrow. Love, it seems, is both blind and central in this scene. In the right, Zephyrus is pursuing Chloris, a nymph. Their love transforms Chloris into Flora, the goddess of nature, of flowers and rebirth. On the left are the 3 Graces, minor goddesses with virtues like those of Venus, holding hands and dancing in harmony. Next to them is Mercury, messenger of the gods, recognizable by his helmet and winged sandals. He's ensuring that this spring remains unspoiled, pushing the clouds away with his staff. Botticelli was a master of detail, and we can see that here. The painting is a botanical wonder and features over 138 different plant species, all meticulously and accurately painted. The dark hues of the greenery is in part due to the aging process of the original paint, yet it's lightened by the abundance of fruits and flowers. There's no denying that this is a magnificent piece of artistic accomplishment, inviting us to unravel its mysteries while basking in its timeless beauty. Judith beheading Holofernes stands as a testament to the sheer power of artistic expression and the resilience of the human spirit. It's not just a painting, but a story of vengeance, power, and an artist's triumph. It is painted by Artemisia Gentileschi, one of the few renowned female artists of the time and the first woman to enter Florence's Academy of Art and Design. Now at first glance, this painting might just look like another dramatic biblical scene, but it is so much more than that. This masterpiece, created around 1620, depicts Judith seducing and then beheading the Assyrian general Holofernes to save her city that was ordered to be besieged. By her side is her maid, and together they pin down Holofernes in a moment of intense physical exertion. Artemisia was a master of chiaroscuro, the technique of using stark contrasts between light and dark. It adds a dramatic intensity, making the scene almost cinematic. You might have seen Caravaggio's version of this story. It's magnificent and brutal, yes, but Artemisia's is visceral. The blood, the struggle, it feels real. It's as if she's not just depicting Judith's story, but also fighting her own battle on the canvas. In a world dominated by men, her brush spoke of her turmoil, her rage, and her unparalleled skill. For Artemisia, this work was personal. At age 17, Artemisia was raped by her art teacher, who was a close friend of her father. At the time, this assault was viewed more as a crime against the family's honor than as a violation of a woman. She was forced to marry her attacker as the social expectations of the time demanded, and upon his refusal, her father decided to bring this matter to the court. During the trial, Artemisia describes her struggle against her rapist and her attempt to attack him with a knife. What's fascinating is how Judith's character has always been relevant. Her story is malleable, and one that many women and members of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community can relate to, even centuries later. Men's attention is often unwelcome, but difficult to reject. Artemisia went on to paint many more powerful images of women. She wasn't just creating art, she was making a statement, carving her place in a world that wasn't ready for her. Her graphic account of the assault and the moments of revenge that followed as she attempted to wound her attacker with a knife provided the court with the information needed to rule it a legitimate assault. She used her voice, despite this horrible experience, to reclaim her family's honor and her own power. In a world where female voices are often suppressed and overlooked, even today, some stories transcend time and speak volumes. This is the Annunciation by Leonardo da Vinci, painted between 1472 to 1475. We can see a flourishing enclosed garden in front of a Renaissance palace. The scene depicts Archangel Gabriel telling the Virgin Mary that she would give birth to Jesus. A young Leonardo, still soaking in the teachings of his mentor, Andrea del Verrocchio, gives us a glimpse of the genius that would later take the art world by storm. As your eyes move, you might notice something quite peculiar about Gabriel's wings. They aren't the dreamy spiritual manifestations we've often seen in religious art. These are different. Da Vinci gives them a touch of reality, painting them to be almost bird-like and anatomically accurate. It's a nod, perhaps, to a budding fascination with the wonders of nature and science, a love affair that would only grow with time. Mary appears immersed in a scripture, a moment caught in time, just as Gabriel's message is about to transform her life. He is offering Mary a lily, a symbol of purity with one hand, while making a blessing gesture with the other. In the sanctity of her space, with a meticulously carved lectern, holding her book, she seems to exude a readiness for the divine message. There's an intimacy to the scene, with a glimpse into her bedroom in the backdrop, a reminder of the personal and the profound nature of this revelation. The architectural features, drawn with precision, follow the rules of perspective, a concept Leonardo was still mastering. However, given his young age, we can see that there are anomalies, like Mary's seemingly elongated arm. The background scenery is believed to be inspired by the Arno Valley near Vinci, Leonardo's hometown. Notice the lush trees, the distant town, and the gentle slopes that seem to blend into one another. Here, Da Vinci uses sfumato, a technique that translates to softened in Italian and results in a gentle smoky haze, bridging colors and tones seamlessly. Through this, Leonardo is urging us to look beyond the immediate, to explore the layers of meaning hidden in the natural world. From the Uffizi to the world, the Annunciation stands as a masterpiece, not just for its portrayal of a biblical story, but as a reflection of a young artist's journey towards becoming one of history's greatest innovators. Let's dive into a story from the early Renaissance, Coronation of the Virgin by Fra Angelico, a Dominican friar and a painter who was described by Giorgio Vasari, the architect of the Uffizi, as a rare and perfect talent. At first glance, you might think this piece is about grandeur, with Jesus placing a heavy crown on Mary's head. But look a bit closer. Jesus isn't placing a crown, he's adding a final gem to a crown that's already on Mary's head. It's a more subtle and tender act, a ceremony in the heavens that's not only divine, but is also deeply human. Our main subjects are surrounded by 40 angels, saints, and blessed figures, including Saint Egidius in the light blue cloak, for whom the church in Florence, the original home of the painting, is named. The background is filled with golden rays, a feature of medieval paintings that symbolizes the divine light. Now, the uniqueness of this work is seen in the details, the soft expressions, the fluid garments, and the gentle movements. Angelico paints even the most common stories with emotion, bringing us his unique soulful touch to the canvas. Chances are you've heard of Michelangelo Buonarroti, the artist who adorned the ceilings of the Sistine Chapel. But on the walls of the Uffizi hangs the only freestanding piece he's ever created, Doni Tondo. Painted in 1507, this circular piece depicts the Holy Family, with Mary and Joseph in a dynamic and unconventional composition. The term tondo means circular in Italian, which was a popular choice for domestic artwork during the Renaissance. It was commissioned by Agnolo Doni, a wealthy Florentine merchant, to celebrate his marriage, hence the name Doni Tondo. The painting was to be hung in the newlywed's bedroom, and for this reason, Michelangelo made the decision to portray the Holy Family in an unconventional way, a moment of peaceful family life. In the center, we have Mary. She's not depicted in the demure way we typically see in other artworks, but rather as a strong figure. The masculinity of Mary could be explained by Michelangelo's use of male models for female figures, as was done for the Sistine Chapel. She twists to either hand Jesus or to take Jesus away from Joseph, positioned above her. He is placed in a protective stance, his legs almost forming a makeshift throne for her, which is an unusual placement for the Holy Family. They both gaze towards Jesus. They are in their own world, unbothered by the figures in the background. Behind them, we see a mountainous landscape, 5 nude figures, and John the Baptist to the right. They are modeled after ancient sculptures that were admired at the time and are waiting to be baptized in the River Jordan by John the Baptist. Let's take a moment and appreciate the colors. The vibrance of the garments here is unusual for the time and show the influence of Venetian artistry. And the art doesn't end there. Carved by Francesco del Tasso, the frame is a masterpiece in its own right, seamlessly complementing the painting, blending the boundary between the art and its container. This masterpiece is actually remarkably well preserved and retains much of its original color and detail, so seeing it in person will allow you to experience the artist's skill and execution up close. Now let's look at Portrait of Leo X by Raphael. If you're imagining a standard stuffy old portrait as is so common of the time, think again. Painted between 1517 and 1519, this piece showcases Pope Leo X, previously Giovanni de' Medici, captured in a distinctive three-quarter profile. To understand the significance of this piece and what makes it stand out from other works of the time, we have to look to the artist. Raphael was in no way ordinary. In fact, he's one of the trinity of the great masters of the High Renaissance, amongst Michelangelo and Leonardo. In his hands, paint doesn't just depict, it resonates. We see Pope Leo X regally seated, draped in a luxurious cloak and cap that are as red as the power he wields. Beside him are two cardinals, his nephew and cousin, Giulio de' Medici and Luigi de' Rossi. Silent and respectful, their presence subtly enhances Leo's stature. Their dignified demeanor make no allusions to the turbulent times laying ahead of Italy and the Christian world. During this time, Rome and Italy were shaken by the start of the Protestant Reformation, a movement against the Catholic Church's practices, and the Medici family's involvement in church affairs, combined with their political and economic influence, made them central figures in this tempestuous period. Raphael has peppered in intricate symbols associated with the Medici family throughout the painting. The pommel on top of the Pope's chair is reminiscent of the Medici's abacus beads. The book on the table is an illuminated codex, a valuable collector's item which scholars have identified as an extremely lavish copy of the Bible owned by Leo's father, Lorenzo the Magnificent, indicating his Medici lineage. Even the servant's bell is covered with the Medici insignia, like feathers and diamonds. The composition hints at the Medici's power at every corner, but it would be a disservice to view Leo solely through the lens of his family's legacy. He was the first in his family to become a pope, one of the most important offices in the entire world, and he didn't stop there. He quickly brought in and elevated his family members to high ranks within the Vatican. And yet, in Raphael's clever brushstrokes, we don't just see a pope or a Medici. We see a man with ambitions, passion, and perhaps even vulnerabilities. Through Raphael's realistic portrayal, Pope Leo X transcends his historical confines, reminding us that beneath the grandeur and titles beats a human heart. Next, let's look at Caravaggio's Medusa. You might know of this Italian Baroque painter who's famous for his depictions of biblical and mythological tales with startling levels of realism. Among his most haunting works are two versions of Medusa, created in 1596 and 1597. Painted on a ceremonial shield, typical of the 16th century, this piece is of Medusa's severed head. The shockingly real spray of blood and the wriggling serpents create a visceral impact. In Greek mythology, Medusa is a mortal gorgon or monster with living venomous snakes in place of hair, known for turning men to stone with her gaze. She meets her end at the hands of Perseus, a demigod who cleverly beheaded her while avoiding direct eye contact using a mirrored shield. Her severed head was then given to Athena, the goddess of war, who placed it on her shield. There is horror here, yes, but also empathy. Despite being decapitated, Medusa appears conscious. Her scream is palpable, and her expression conveys the dawning realization of her eternal fate. Here, Caravaggio replaces Medusa's face with his own, positioning himself as immune to her fatal gaze. She doesn't look directly at the viewers and instead looks away, shifting the power to the observer and emphasizing her downfall. It is a beautiful play between life and death, the inevitable powerlessness facing us all. Caravaggio is known for his mastery of tenebrism, a technique that uses especially pronounced chiaroscuro. This emphasizes darkness as the dominant feature in the image. It not only enhances the dramatic impact of the piece, but also contributes to the illusion of depth and volume. The realistic portrayal of Medusa's features, including her face and snake-infested hair, adds to the sense of three-dimensionality. A testament to Caravaggio's genius, this piece blends realism and theatricality to leave an indelible mark on the history of art. This self-portrait by Elisabeth Louise Vigee Brun is an important piece in informing us of the Uffizi Gallery's past, present, and its future. Throughout its history, the Uffizi Gallery, like many art institutions, showcased the predominance of male artists. This self-portrait, created in 1790 and later added to the gallery's collection, was an exception in an era where female artists were often overshadowed. Her painting not only represented her individual talent, but also symbolized the underrepresented voices of female artists of the time. Today, in the light of the gallery's recent commitment to balancing gender representation in art, this piece stands as a precursor and an anchor point for these efforts. In 1789, at the height of her career, she left Paris to escape the revolutionary uprisings, heading to Rome and stopping in Florence on her way. While in Florence, she visited the Uffizi Gallery and was inspired by the collection of self-portraits, particularly one by contemporary Swiss painter Angelico Kaufmann. The director of the Uffizi at the time requested that she add her own work to the collection, which she enthusiastically accepted. The self-portrait showcases Vigee Brun wearing an elegant black silk robe with a vibrant red sash and a white headscarf reminiscent of headdresses used by Rembrandt. These all reflect her status, style, and Rococo influence. But it's her expression that steals the show. An alert intelligence and vigor, a freedom from care despite the tumultuous times. It was more than a self-portrait. It was a dual tribute to herself and her queen, Marie Antoinette. In her own words, "I painted myself with a palette in hand, in front of a canvas on which I am drawing the queen in white chalk." Upon exhibiting it, the painting received praise by the Academy of San Luca, and in Florence, Grand Duke Ferdinand III considered it a masterpiece, exempting it from the usual evaluation process by the Royal Academy of Fine Arts. This painting stands at the intersection of the Uffizi's past traditions, current transformations, and future aspirations. Titian's Venus of Urbino, painted in 1534, is a significant work of the Italian Renaissance. This famous artwork depicts a young bride in a unique moment. She's about to dress for a special Venetian ritual called il toccamano. In this ceremony, which takes place at home and not in a church, a young woman would touch her future husband's hand to show that she agrees to marry him. Our subject is lying naked on a bed. Her gaze is flirtatious as she looks out at us. She's covering her pubis with her left hand while holding flowers in her right. These roses are symbols of Venus and represent love and commitment. At the foot of her bed rests a dog, a symbol of loyalty in marriage. The background shows an elegant room typical of a wealthy Venetian home. Two maids are present. One is searching a chest from which she's just removed a luxurious gold and blue wedding dress, seen on the other maid's shoulder. Looking closer, we can see a pot of myrtle on the windowsill, another symbol linked to Venus and love's loyalty. The depiction of Venus in a domestic setting, reclining and making direct eye contact with the viewer, was a departure from traditional representations of divine or mythological figures. This humanization of a goddess was a significant shift in artistic norms. Titian had an extraordinary talent for giving life and character to his subjects. Here, every brushstroke adds intensity. His skill in depicting the softness of skin and the texture of materials is unmatched, showcasing his mastery in bringing a remarkable realism to his work. It epitomizes Renaissance art's blending of sensuality, symbolism, and technical mastery, offering us insight into both the era's artistic genius and cultural nuances. So there you have it, 10 masterpieces, each telling a unique story immortalized in color. They speak to the endless quest for beauty, truth, and understanding that has driven humanity for centuries. While its core consists of Renaissance masterpieces, the Uffizi is expanding its range to include more contemporary works and pieces by historically underrepresented artists. In recent years, the gallery has taken significant strides towards diversity and accessibility. It's not just a mausoleum of the past, but an evolving institution that has begun to broaden its horizons. Through innovative exhibitions such as the juxtaposed works of Gian Lorenzo Bernini with contemporary portraits by Ilaria Sagaria to address the issue of violence against women, and an enhancement to their collection's online accessibility and launching a plan to show more women artists, the Uffizi is moving towards embracing a more inclusive range of artists and themes. So the next time you find yourself wandering the halls of the Uffizi, remember, it's more than just an art collection, it's a conversation across time. Thank you so much for watching. These videos take a lot of time, so your support is greatly appreciated. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment, even if it's just a few words.